I'm Mark Holbrook, and I have the distinct privilege today to be your host for this historical marker dedication. It's a pleasure on many different levels for me personally, as I'm a member of the 49th Ohio Reenactment Unit. I had the great honor to work with Dick Mann on the book about the 49th Ohio. And I have the privilege to be here representing the Ohio Historical Society and the Historical Marker Program. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge a few people who are here with us today. First off, Mayor Jim Boroff from Tiffin. State Representative Rex Damschroeder. Welcome, sir. Christina Kuehling from the Ohio Civil War 150 office. Deb Reamer from the city of Tiffin, and the wonderful staff who have been great to work with, who physically got this in the ground this week. The Johnson's Island Civil War Roundtable, who are instrumental in bringing this about today, specifically Gary and Jan Dundor and Rex Felton, and all the members for all of their hard work. Thank you. We'll keep this all very brief, although the weather's wonderful. You never know in August in Ohio. And so I would like to, at this time, introduce to you somebody who has become a very good friend of mine. And before we do that, actually, we'll have the presentation of colors by the 49th Ohio Volunteer Infantry reenacted.
March. Order. Arms. Parade. Rest.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Weldon Neff will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Sir.
All veterans, please hand salute. One, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two.
Thank you. And now, it's my privilege to introduce to you a gentleman who's become a very good friend, Mr. Dick Mann's son, Josh Mann.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. I truly didn't imagine all these people here. So I apologize if you didn't get a program. I didn't quite print enough, I guess, which is a good thing to have. Let me begin by echoing Mark's thanks to all the people that helped make today possible. Again, to the city of Tiffin, Mayor Boroff and Deb Reamer for allowing us to put this marker up and working with us. To Fran Fleet and the Seneca County Museum Foundation, who extended their hand to our family multiple times with the book and this project. They wanted to ensure that Dad's goals were met for the book, and I thank you. And again, to the Johnson's Island Civil War Roundtable. I'm in Cleveland and Mark's in Columbus, so to have folks here in Tiffin rallying for a cause in their hometown and being a liaison with the different places we need them to work with, we appreciate it, so thank you to them. However, Mark, there's one person you left off the list, probably the most important, Mark Holbrook. He's been the driving force behind this project. He's been the driving force behind this project and had it not been for his passion to make this happen, we surely would not be here today. Maybe we would have gotten here somewhere down the road, but Mark recognized the significance of being here so close to the 150th anniversary and ensured we would not fall off that goal. So Mark, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your loyalty and dedication to my father and our family. And thank you on behalf of the Buckeye Vanguard. If you permit me for just a few moments for a son to brag about his father. Most of the time it's the other way around. We are here today to pay tribute and remember the boys of the 49th. Outside of the officers and men of that regiment, I'm not sure there was a man on this earth that loved the 49th more than Richard Mann. The first sentence in his author's preface supports that. At the charter meeting of the reorganized 49th Ohio Volunteer Infantry in the fall of 1964, I saw my first photo of two soldiers who fought with the 49th. Little did I know that this would change my life forever. His search began in 40 years of flea markets, garage sales, military shows, eBay, phone calls, letters, emails, message boards, and reenactments. Hours upon hours of reading books, letters, diaries, newspapers, official reports, hundreds of feet of microfilm, thousands of miles traveled to libraries, museums, historical societies, personal collections, universities, the National Archives, and hundreds of descendants provided him with the countless volumes of data needed to assemble this long overdue published history on the regiment. He did not go on this journey alone. Along the way he met pards like Bob Van Doren, or Big Bob as we affectionately know him, and Dave McCullough, who shared a passion in the 49th and graciously opened their personal collections for the book. In the beginning, he would trade handwritten and typed letters with other collectors, communicating in between shows about the latest photo found or the sweet deal. While organizing his files after his death, I came across a box of these letters with the likes of the godfather of Ohio Civil War, Larry Strayer, and Brad Pruden down in Georgia, as well as Matt and Steve Burr. He found students of the 49th Sister Regiments and Willicks Brigade, Bob Bundy, Steve Stewart, and Michael Peake, who shared information on the 15th Ohio, 89th Illinois, and 32nd Indiana to help round out the story of the regiment. He had a team, his gals as he called them, at Published Library in Fostoria, that could find any book known to man. I don't think they ever let him down. His fellow members of the 49th shooting team, who were members of the North-South Skirmish Association, firing Civil War weapons at breakable targets and dressing in the uniforms of the Union soldier. This was my first taste of the 49th, spending my early years at Greenfield Village, Centerburg, Xenia, and Defiance. I can recount countless times sitting around the campfire as a young man, poking at it with a stick. The guys would tell me that if you play with fire, you're going to wet the bed. Dad would reply with, if you see that Lone Ranger sleeping bag on the firing line tomorrow morning, you know what happened. In recent years, his return to reenacting opened doors for contacts with other 49th descendants. In a letter I received after his death, Walt Schroeder from Oregon recalled the incidents of their meeting at the 135th reenactment of Gettysburg. Now keep in mind, the 135th reenactment of Gettysburg is considered the single largest reenactment in history. So finding a guy in a blue suit amongst 30,000 reenactors is no small order. He recalled one afternoon, I had some free time, so I headed to where I thought his outfit would be. On the way, I met a fellow in Union uniform. I asked him if I was on the right track to the Western Armies. He told me I was and asked what outfit I was looking for. When I told him the 49th Ohio, he asked for whom I was looking for. When I said Dick Mann, he laughed, shook my hand and said, "That's me." We had a good visit sitting on the bank by the side of the road. After that, I could put a face on the emails that came from Dick. Other partners came a little closer to home. Bob Mitten, or Captain Bob, as Dad called him, carried the extra weight of paper and pencil with him to all reenactments for the explicit purpose of when someone said, "I have a descendant in the 49th," he would say, "Do you know Dick Mann?" Let me get your phone number. Dad's network of contacts was literally the who's who of Ohio Civil War experts. I tell people that when Dad died, I lost the greatest tool a historian could have in his toolbox. He was my Google. Any questions I had could be answered either by one of the many volumes of books on the shelf or through those contacts he built over the years. When Dad didn't have an answer, he always knew someone who did. I would describe it as an episode of Pawn Stars. When Rick isn't really sure about an item, you usually hear, I don't know much about that, but I've got a buddy. Let me get him here to take a look. That was Dad. He had a buddy. He was never afraid to share his information and knowledge with anyone. He gave thousands of talks to classrooms, civic groups, genealogical societies, and just about anyone who wanted to know about the Civil War soldier. He balanced all this with being a baseball coach, Boy Scout leader, serving on the American Legion firing detail, a member of the KSC, and serving on the library board, volunteering at church, and working all the overtime he could to make ends meet. On top of that, he was a great friend to many, a loving father, and a caring husband. As Dad approached his retirement, which happened to be at the height of America's enthusiasm for the Civil War, his years of work began to morph into this book, something that never before had been compiled for the 49th Ohio. In a 1999 article with the Review Times, he said, I didn't start out to write a history, but that is what happened. He purchased a computer, which was a big jump from the old typewriter he spent years pounding away on, and began to assemble his labor of love. He recruited the talents of Mark to help him put meat on the bones, and together they assembled a lasting tribute to the Buckeye Vanguard. His goal was never to make a profit from the book, but to cover the publishing cost and turn the proceeds into preservation support. This marker is a result of that, with all remaining and future dollars going to help preserve the original flags of the 49th that are housed in the Ohio Battle Flag Collection at the Ohio Historical Society. In the last paragraph of his book, Dad wrote, for it is no higher honor for any soldier or even citizen than to do their duty for their country. Yet it is the unique story of the 49th Ohio and its men that resides in a special place in the history of the United States, the state of Ohio, and the many towns, large and small, from whence they came. If he were here today, Dad would probably just say he was doing his duty, but he did so much more, and now future generations will know about the loyalty, duty, sacrifice, and courage that the boys of 61 displayed to defend this great union. Thank you again for everyone being here. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, I'd like to introduce to you the Mayor of Tiffin, Mr. James Barr, for a few words. Mayor.
I really have no business being up here. I didn't do any of the work. When we were approached about this project, my city administrator, Deb Reamer, and I discussed it with various individuals, and I said, Deb, you want to take care of this for me? And there you go. It was her working with our city employees and, of course, those other representatives that made this happen. I would like you to know that in preparing the base for the memorial, we had to wait for the concrete to set, and we had our assistant superintendent and superintendent of public works out here this morning on their own time. Now, if you're from the State Bureau of Workers' Comp, ignore that. They were so dedicated to this project that they said we would do it, we would volunteer to do it because it's very important. I also understand that this really enhances this part of town, this park. We have our director of parks, Steve Dreyfus, over here. He will make sure that it's well manicured, because this is something that we're going to honor, we're going to cherish, we're going to maintain, because it's part of us. So thank you very much for making this a part of Tiffin and making us a part of everything you're trying to do. Thank you.
And next up, I'd like to introduce somebody to you who is, her and her organization were instrumental in helping us to get the marker placed today. These, as you can tell and as you will see when we reveal it in a few moments, is a very beautiful marker, and they don't come cheap. And so the Seneca County Museum Foundation joined with us to help fund the marker that you're going to see today, and I would like to invite up the Vice President of the Foundation, Fran Fleet.
Thank you. Boy, is it good to see all these people. And I'm wearing several hats today. First, as Vice President of the Seneca County Museum Foundation, just let me say that we are proud to be able to contribute to this very worthy project. A long-time dream of Richard Mann. Personally, I met Richard when the foundation unveiled Gibson's Adjutant General. That's hard to say, you know, that Adjutant General's uniform. Richard was the keynote speaker that day. Even in that relatively short meeting time, his dedication, his enthusiasm, and yes, even his passion for the 49th District and its history was evident. Many of the attendees that day were eager to read his book, although we had to wait almost 2 years for it to be published. And it was well worth the wait. Another hat I'm wearing today is a descendant of General Gibson. Now you must understand, in spite of my gray hair, I never met the man. But I sure have heard a lot about him. Oftentimes as a child, we would be driving downtown Tiffin, and my mother would point to the statue on the courthouse lawn, and she'd say, "That's your great-great-uncle." Well, you can guess my reaction as a child. So what? Later, and I must add much later, I learned a little bit more about General Gibson and the 49th. Gibson had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. Both sons died young without issue. His 2 daughters, however, did survive, marry, and have children. One, I believe it was Jenny, married a Bradfield. And Molly Bradfield Collier and her granddaughter, somewhere is there, Shannon, came today for this ceremony, all the way from Cincinnati and Columbus. Her nephew, John Bradfield, sent his regrets, and in his letter mentioned an interesting story that I probably read and forgotten. Here in Seneca County, we emphasize the 49th Regiment and its Colonel, Gibson. But did you know that Gibson raised another regiment? According to David Bigger, Gibson's biographer, early in the war, the 49th was in camp somewhere in Kentucky. And a group of several Kentuckians came to the camp and wanted to enlist. But they wanted to stay in Kentucky and protect their homes. Now, this is not the way things worked. And eventually their request worked up the command level, and Gibson, who at the time was serving as commander of the brigade, was summoned. When he learned of the request, he launched into one of his famous stump speeches. And I do mean famous. And in that speech, he appealed to the men's patriotism and their sense of fairness. After all, here were men from Ohio willing to serve, even die, for the Kentucky people and residents. Well, when he finished, the men not only enlisted, they went back home, gathered enough of their neighbors to form a regiment. So Gibson did, in effect, raise 2 regiments, one here in Seneca County and one in Kentucky. When you consider the method that he used to raise these regiments, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that prior to and after the Civil War, Gibson was a nationally known orator. Nor should it surprise anyone that his biography is titled Ohio's Silver-Tongued Orator, or that the courthouse statue depicts him not in military uniform, but as an orator with his finger up. Let me just finish by saying again that on behalf of the Seneca County Museum Foundation, how glad we are to be able to play even a small part in making this marker a reality. I want to thank the Ohio Historical Society, and particularly Mark Holbrook, Josh Mann, the Johnson Island Civil War Roundtable, for all of their work in organizing today's ceremony. And a particular thank you to the city of Tiffin for all of their work. Thank you, and again, thank you all for coming.
Little did I realize 10 years ago when Dick came to me and said, Mark, would you mind helping me with this book I'm working on? That it would lead to today. But that's what I guess hard work does, cooperation and a passion and dedication to honor those who should be honored. It's an interesting merging of the original 49th Ohio, the 49th Ohio Reenactment Unit, and the 49th Ohio North-South Skirmish Association that Dick founded. And most appropriate that it happens here. For we're standing on ground that was occupied by the original 49th Ohio Volunteer Infantry. We're standing on ground within the boundaries of Camp Nobel, as it was called, where the 49th Ohio Infantry, 150 years ago yesterday, raised their right hands and enlisted in the Union Army. It's pretty amazing that we can be standing here today on that spot. And so if Josh and Fran would come forward, please. I'll now switch to my official duties with the Ohio Historical Society. I'm sorry. Come on. And read to you the text of these acknowledgments. The Ohio Historical Society commends the Richard F. Mann family and Seneca County Museum Foundation for furthering knowledge and understanding of our state's heritage by placing an Ohio historical marker on August 21st, 2011, which shares the history of Camp Nobel, the brave men of the 49th Ohio Volunteer Infantry, and their leader, Colonel William H. Gibson. These men served in several of the most iconic battles of the Civil War and traveled over 4,000 miles in their service. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the reason we're all here today, the revealing of the historical marker to the 49th Ohio, the Buckeye Vanguard, and Camp Nobel. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our programmed events today. We welcome you to come on up and read the marker. Josh and I, Boys in Blue, Fran, everybody will be around for a little while. And thank you once again for coming, and we hope that here in Stalter Park there's yet another reason to come and visit this beautiful park on the grounds of Camp Nobel. Thank you all.
If I would
thought. I don't know how we would have done it. If I had the PA.
You know what?
That's ingenious.
Get it? Thank you.
As opposed to standing wall.
Huh? Say, Sally? You're supposed to smile. Come here, please.
Yeah. Where's your camera? That's your guy? He's going to take our cameras and take our pictures.
I've been in the whole. I was at it when I was in. There's a couple instances in here where a couple of guys are back home on the country. It's amazing. You don't pull a trick like I do. I was the day before, I don't know why.